exactly what I said, a complete Spanish study plan for you to study in 12 months and understand all the memes your Mexican friends send to you on TikTok. And before you procrastinate, you don't need to be watching this video at the beginning of the year for this to work, okay? So let's not procrastinate here. Hello world, my name is Bia and I've been learning Spanish for over 3 years now, and at the moment recording this video I just got back from a solo trip to Chile and Argentina where I practiced my Spanish a lot and was able to enjoy it a lot more, knowing that I could ask for information on the street, place my order, and also talk to my friends in Spanish easily. And with that in mind, I decided to create this video to help those who want to learn Spanish this year and don't know where to start. Since we're referring to a one-year project, I'll break it down so you can better track your progress and mainly your development. This way you'll be able to look back and notice the progress that has been made and also feel a little bit of happiness and pride that is crucial to keep learning. The breakdown will be based on blocks, with each block lasting over a quarter. The first 3 months of study will be for adaptation. Here you will need to start consuming content in Spanish and incorporate the language into your daily life, whether it's listening to Spanish music or starting that famous Netflix series that you said you would watch in the original language one day. I think that day has finally come, right? The purpose of this process is to get your ears used to the sounds of the language, to gauge the speed at which natives speak, and to top it off, to learn some little words. So in this first block, we will study basic subjects that involve the world around you, things from your routine that you can remember more easily. This involves learning how to introduce yourself in a conversation, talk about yourself, talk about the days of the week, the hours, the places you go, your personal taste in music, books, films, whatever. And since we're going to focus on vocabulary that mainly concerns yourselves, the main verb you will need to spend time learning will be the modal verb poder, which means to be able to or can in English. It's a very useful verb because it's used to express capability, ability, or permission, exactly what we need at the beginning. For the remaining verbs, the verb tenses you will be studying will be the presente indicativo, equivalent to the simple present in English, and the presente progresivo, which corresponds to the present continuous. These verb tenses refer to actions and habits we are doing or we do in our everyday life in the present, basically. Now, when you're not actively studying, it's time for your passive immersion to practice the language. Now, what does that mean? It means that I will give you some tips to practice your listening, reading, writing, and speaking. For listening, I recommend listening to slower paced songs, which are usually the ones where you can better distinguish the words being sung. And of course, songs with simple lyrics also work really well. Plus, Spanish movies with English subtitles. I know that some people may recommend you to watch Spanish series with English audio and Spanish subtitles, but at least for me, it doesn't really work really well because I end up just ignoring the subtitles, not learning Spanish at all, and just listening and paying attention to the English audio. So I recommend starting with Spanish audio, English subtitles. For reading, since our vocabulary is still very small, children's books or those books focused on beginner Spanish learners will be our allies. I have a video on my channel talking about websites to practice all of those skills to learn a language, so after this video, go check it out. To practice your speaking, I understand that initially it can be very complicated for you to have a friend or a family member who speaks Spanish, so initially you can just start to talk to yourself and talk in front of the mirror, but just speak in Spanish. You have to practice. So you can just pretend you're a YouTuber talking to an invisible camera, but now in Spanish. When I was learning English, I used to speak out loud the vocabulary that I learned during the week, and the good thing is that you can do the same with Spanish. So if you're learning a new word and you're learning a new vocabulary, you can already start practicing with yourself, alone. You don't need to actually talk to someone. I mean, that's good, but I know that at the beginning we can be a little bit shy with our language skills. So you can start talking to yourself like, oh, you're going to read a book, so you know how to say book and how to say to read in Spanish, so you can already say like, ahora voy a leer un libro porque es mi hobby. Something like that, you know? If you're even more invested in this journey of learning Spanish, I recommend you recording yourself speaking. That's a really great method because you will be able to see your evolution, and just don't be afraid of recording yourself, okay? Just talk to the camera, just record an audio speaking. Even if you pronounce the words incorrectly, even if you stutter, even if you forget the words, like, it doesn't matter. Just document your journey, because I guarantee you that at the end of the year you will be very happy that you actually took the time to record and document your journey, and you will be able to see like all the mistakes that you have made,
the unnatural, okay? Don't worry about that now.
But you'll be able to see the mistakes you have made, you'll be able to see your evolution, and there is nothing that gives you more motivation to keep going than seeing your progress. Finally, to practice writing, there are a few possibilities. For example, the first one will be if you have a diary or if you enjoy journaling, you can start journaling in Spanish. With the vocabulary you have, I know that it's not that much, I know that it's not that deep, but you can already like write about your daily life, about what you're going to do, what your routine looks like, something really simple. And in case you're not a big fan of journaling or diaries and you know you don't have that much time, you can transcribe songs and short dialogues or just write your daily to-do list in Spanish, and that will be good. Now that we have reached the second quarter of the year, you have a better grasp of how the Spanish language operates. You have discovered that the verb conjugation in Spanish is quite different from the verb conjugation in English. And perhaps you have been feeling overwhelmed by it, but please don't worry, okay? Don't put the cart before the horses. Over the next 3 months, we'll delve deeper into topics that we are capable of discussion. So now you can talk about your routine, you can talk about yourself, you can introduce yourself in a conversation, right? But well, our vocabulary is still very shallow, so we aren't able to establish deep connections. And therefore, in this quarter, we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on this aspect of actually creating a deeper vocabulary. This means we're going to learn to talk about our past, what you used to do as a child, you did last week, your old habits, about your academic and professional experience, what you studied in college, what you work with now. In addition to learning how to talk about the past, it's also important to focus on learning how to describe things around you, whether it's the color or the shape of an object or a physical feature of someone. The verb tense that we'll use to describe all this you must have already figured out. It's the past simple, which in Spanish would be pretérito perfecto simple, and the past continuous. Moreover, it's time to learn the famous WH questions, but now in Spanish. So in this quarter, you're going to learn how to ask what happened, why happened, where it happened, when it happened, and also some questions such as how much, how many, who, which, and of course, how it happened. These words can seem really simple, but they are very useful because with them you can create countless questions and it will change your Spanish completely, trust me. Plus, when it comes to the modal verb we are going to focus on this quarter, it will be the verb could, which is the past version of can. And this modal verb is very useful because just like can, you can create a bunch of phrases. But when it comes to the reading skill, you can now actually challenge yourself and try to read something more advanced, more complex. So instead of, children's books, you can move on to young adult literature. I know that this can sound a bit scary, but at this point I believe that you can try to engage in conversation with Spanish speakers, those speakers who already know some English or who are in the process of learning English, and you guys can try to do some language exchange. But one thing that you have to be careful is that you should choose your language exchange partner very well, because some people may just ignore that you are crawling in the language and you're doing some baby steps in Spanish, and they can already start talking very fast or with a lot of local slangs, and you will be just like,
Gosh, what is that? What language is that?
So please pay attention to the person you choose to practice Spanish, because at first it can be a little bit scary, and if the person is not willing to help you improving, then it's not worth it. Also, one thing that I used to do when I was learning English is instead of talking to native speakers at first, I would speak to people who knew English but their mother tongue was not English. That helped me a lot because then I felt confident to, start creating my sentences and getting confident, so then I could speak to native speakers later. So you guys can do that, if you have that friend that is doing Duolingo for a few years now, you can just, text them and say like, hey, let's practice Spanish. Something like that. We have reached the third block and we're going to start to make some changes in the schedule, okay? So each block now will last 2 months. And of course, the goal of this schedule is to fit all the content in 12 months, but it is also entirely adaptive. So if you feel like each block should last 6 months, 4 months, or only 1 month, it's all up to you. What I want to help you is to become a self-taught learner. So I want you to be independent. So if you feel like 3 months is too much, you can just put 2 months or perhaps 1 month. I don't know if you're speed running Spanish. But if you feel like your routine is, too heavy, you have too many appointments, you have a lot of tasks, you're busy with college, with work, you can study slowly. Don't worry. But anyway, now that we're talking about the 7th and 8th months, things start to get interesting, right? With everything you have already learned, I believe that you are very excited about the language. You're already planning your next trip to somewhere that speaks Spanish. You want to, focus on your accent. You want to learn the Argentinian accent, the Colombian accent, or perhaps you're very interested in the Peruvian one. I just hope that at this point you're more confident with your language skills, you're more excited about Spanish, and you are quite happy with where you are now, right? But with all of these aspirations and desires, I think it's time for us to learn about the future. Yes, that's what we're going to learn. So yeah, that's the verb tense we're going to learn in this quarter, simple future. I want you to study vocabulary related to travel and plans, desires and aspirations, whether they are concrete wishes and projects that will indeed happen or those that are more imaginative and uncertain. Just focus on this type of vocabulary. The modal verbs we are going to study during these 2 months will be have to, should, and must. Those 3 are very important and you should study them equally. Regarding our skills, shall we start watching content on YouTube? There's a lot of content in Spanish here on this platform and I'm sure you will find a perfect YouTuber for you to watch in Spanish. Personally, I like to watch vlogs, but just choose the content that you will normally watch in your native language, but not in Spanish. So you don't have to force yourself to watch something just because it's in Spanish. And also remember that the tips to practice your listening, writing, reading, speaking, all of those tips, they are cumulative. So the things that you used to do at the beginning, you can still do them, but always just adapting to the level that you currently are in Spanish. Welcome to the 4th vlog. I'm so proud of you to getting this far. And we still have a lot of cool stuff to learn. But now that we are almost at the end of the year, we're going to talk about possibilities. So now that we have learned how to talk about the present, the past, and the future, we kind of finished the basic timeline. We're going to talk about hypothetical cases, so possibilities. And to do this, the verb tenses that we're going to study in this quarter will be present perfect and the present perfect continuous. Yes, they have long names. Yes, they can sound a little bit scary, but don't worry, we have time, okay? Calm down.
Let's, breathe in, breathe out.
Along with this, you guys will study the modal verb would. Have you ever stopped to think about all the sentences you can create and all the questions you can create with the word would? Think about it. Think about that in Spanish. I mean, we're going to be fluent at the end of this year. At this moment, your vocabulary is quite interesting, so delve into words that fill in those missing gaps. You know those words that you once thought they were too advanced for you? Well, I think now you can start learning them. And I'm not trying to convince you to start learning like idiosyncrasy in Spanish. No, I'm just saying, that word that you thought, we'll learn later. Yeah, I think that moment has come, and it's now. At this point, if you're not listening to podcasts and, watching some TED Talks, you can give it a try now. I think it's a good moment, In my opinion, TED Talks are very inspiring and not boring at all. But if you think that they are, too, boring or something like that, you can try to listen to podcasts, to subjects that you already like and enjoy in your native language, but now in Spanish. But, just consume a lot of media and content in Spanish. I think this is important since the beginning. But if you were not doing that before, which is a problem, start doing now. Please, seriously. We have reached the final block and now it's the perfect time for you to reflect on what you have learned so far. Right now, I want you to strive to communicate as much as possible so you can identify the words that are missing from your vocabulary, the phrases that you find most difficult to construct. I want you to speak. I want you to speak up all the time. Speak a lot, just like a child.
Just speak to me in Spanish. Speak to yourself in Spanish. Speak to your father, to your mother, to your friends, to your husband, to your wife.
Just speak in Spanish as much as possible, okay? From these observations, you'll have a clearer direction of what you need to improve, what you need to do now. Because at this point, there's not a lot that I need to tell you besides you should immerse yourself in the language. Like immersion at this point is the key. Just, fill your ambient, fill your life with Spanish at this point. On this final block, I also want you to try new things. I want you to challenge yourself. So, try to read that article about technology, that video about politics, but in Spanish. I know it can be a little bit hard. I know it's, a different vocabulary, but if you leave a video knowing at least one new word, it's already worth it. I want you at this point to be independent, a self-taught learner. So folks, that's it. I think now it's the moment that I should talk to you, as a close friend, because one thing I have learned is that time will pass anyway, so just dedicate. It doesn't matter how many years it will take, it doesn't matter how many weeks it will take for you to hold your first conversation in Spanish. Just keep going, keep studying, keep learning, because time will pass. Oh, but I'm too old to start learning Spanish now. No, you're not. You're not frozen. You're not frozen in time. You can start anytime you want, okay? So please, just know that time will pass anyway. Just do what you feel like your future self will be proud of. Also, if you feel like studying Spanish is boring, please don't give up. Just try new methods, or perhaps, well, you can try to learn a new language, but I love Spanish and I'm sure you will love too. And I think that's why you're watching this video, so don't give up on Spanish. Try new methods, try new things. There are a lot of videos on my channel about how to learn a new language, so just watch them and try to do something different. I do believe in you guys. I think you guys are totally capable of learning a new language, whether it's Spanish, Russian, Korean, whatever. I believe in you guys. I really hope you liked this video. I hope it fulfilled all your expectations. And please leave a comment about your thoughts, perhaps tips, or you can try to, find a study buddy in the comment sections. I don't know, you guys can try to start that. And yeah, subscribe to my channel to not lose any new video. And that's it. I love you guys so much and see you in the next video. Bye!